guys, it's Amy Anderson. Let's crochet. Whoa! This is a very, very, very beginner video. This is for those of you who have no idea what you're doing, but you want to learn how to crochet. One of the great things about crochet is that you can get started for really cheap. This is a hobby that you don't have to spend a lot of money on, but once you get into it, you will start spending all your money on yarn. So get ready. You'll need some yarn, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is the implement that you use to crochet. It is referred to as a hook. There are lots of different kinds of hooks. You do not need to spend a lot of money. Go on to Amazon or into Joann or Michael's and buy a basic kit. It will have the main sizes that you will use. You don't need the teeny tiny ones or the big, huge fat ones to start out with. You usually just need like a 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5. And these aluminum metal hooks are usually the least expensive, and you can find sets of these on Amazon or in any crafting store or even in Walmart for very, very inexpensive. I just recently upgraded to one with a thicker handle, and it's not like spongy, but it's got a little softness to it. So if you're doing a long project, it is a lot easier on your hands. So this is what I prefer now. And you will see printed on the hook the size, and it is marked by a number and then mm, which stands for millimeters. So this is a 5.5, 5.5 millimeter. This is also, it's really hard to see, but 5.5 millimeters. So these are the same size hook. You'll want some kind of a scissors. Once again, you don't have to spend money on an expensive scissors. You can just use like the kitchen scissors that's in your junk drawer. If it cuts yarn, it works. You'll need darning needle. This is something you probably will have to buy, but also super inexpensive. It's helpful to have these little pins that are called stitch markers. And these also are super cheap. You can buy little metal ones like this. They have plastic ones. You can get them on Amazon for literally like cents a piece. Or you can just use a safety pin, which you've probably got those at home too. You don't have to buy stuff because you might start crocheting and go, I hate this, I quit. Why did I spend money on this stuff? Let's read this label, people. Now this happens to be Red Heart, which is a super well-known common brand. You will see it in most places where they sell yarn, any kind of hobby store. Some of the other brands that I recommend too are Lion is a great brand. Caron, C-A-R-O-N is another great brand. Not like Karen, like, oh my God, that crazy lady. But Caron, C-A-R-O-N is a great brand. Bernat is a great brand. Those are some of the major labels that you'll see regularly in the big crafting stores. I would say that Red Heart has the easiest label to read. They make it as dummy-proof as possible. If you just flip the sucker over, it tells you, of course, the color in 3 languages. But here's the important part right here. It's going to tell you the weight of the yarn, which you'll see a big number, and it's usually printed on a ball of yarn picture. And this is 4, which is a really typical standard, like when you think of what yarn kind of looks like, this is it. This is the standard yarn that you're going to use for a lot of beginner projects, and a lot of people will refer to this as worsted weight. So when you see that in instructions, use a worsted weight yarn, you're looking for something that's about a 4. And here is where you're going to see what size hook is recommended for this ball of yarn. And here, as if you can see it, it says 5.5 millimeter, which is the hook that we have here. 5.5 millimeter. And depending on the project, you might use a bigger hook or a smaller hook. And then also, as you become more experienced, you'll also know your style. Some people tend to crochet tighter or looser. And this is not a set in stone thing. It doesn't mean that if you don't use this exact size hook that it won't work for this yarn. It really depends what you're making and what your style of crochet is. But that is a nice general guideline. Oh, one last thing about a ball of yarn, or this is also called a skein, S-K-E-I-N. There are 2 options, and you are going to make a choice. Your choice will be right no matter which one you make, and you can change your choice too. It doesn't matter. Oh, I just spit on my own hand. You can start this skein of yarn either from the inside center. I like to think of it as the yarn butthole, where you have kind of to dig in there and find the end and pull out from there. That is my preferred method, but it really depends on the brand of yarn, because some yarns are easier to find that little piece, the tail inside. Some are not easy to find. Or you can pull from the outside and start your yarn there, and it's usually tucked into the label like this, and you just pull it out. I like to pull from the center because then you can just keep pulling from the center like this, and you don't have to worry about like your ball of yarn rolling around or that kind of thing. But it's not for everybody. It's okay. Do what you want. Yarn's super cheap too. You can usually find a skein of yarn for like $3-4. Let's get started on crocheting. Oh, one other thing. Most crocheting is done right-handed. Guess what? I'm not right-handed. I'm severely left-handed, but I do crochet right-hand, meaning that I put my hook in my right hand and I hold the yarn with my left. Some people do crochet left-handed. I don't know how they do it, but if you want to give it a whack, you're certainly free to do it, but all of my tutorials are going to be right-handed, meaning the hook is going to be in my right hand, the yarn will be held in my left. The first thing you need to know how to do is make a slip knot. The slip knot is the first thing that you're going to do in a lot of the projects that you make, especially anything that's flat or a piece of clothing, like a dish rag or a towel or a scarf. You are probably going to start with a slip knot and then a foundation chain, and that's what we're going to learn today. To make a slip knot, look, there are a billion videos on YouTube about how to make a slip knot. And I'm just going to tell you right now, people overcomplicate the crap out of this. It's so easy, you guys. You'll hear people refer to this, the end of the yarn, as the tail. And then the part that's connected to the ball of yarn, that's your working yarn, your working end, because that's one you're going to work with because it's connected to that's your yarn. If you were working from this end, you'd run out of yarn really fast. Make sense? Okay. So with your yarn, here's the tail. Just take your yarn and twist it, make a little loop. And it doesn't matter if the tail is in the front or if it's in the back. I really don't care. The important thing is that you're gonna pull the working yarn through the loop you made, okay? So here's a little loop. I like to just hold it with my fingers in place. And right now I have the tail is underneath the working yarn. That means I'm gonna reach through and pull the working yarn through, and I've just made a slip knot. It's that simple. I'm gonna undo it and show you again. Twist your yarn, make a little loop. Right now the tail is underneath. I'm gonna reach through, pull the working yarn through, and that loop that you pull through, that's where you're gonna put your hook. I mean, you don't have to overcomplicate this process, I swear to God. Let's do that again. There are videos of people wrapping it around their fingers and all. You don't need to do that. Once again, twist into a loop. Let's just do it the other way, just for fun. Twist into a loop. This time, the tail is on the top. So that means we need to pull through this working end through the hole, okay? So we're gonna reach through, pull the working end through, and that's where we're gonna put our hook. And you will see that the proper way to put it on your hook is to have this tail facing toward you. And if you just pull on the working end, there it is, nice and tight. If you need to loosen it, you can pull on tail a little bit, it loosens it. Let's tighten it up. And now we're ready to start our chain. Okay, now that you have your, oh my God, I almost dropped the camera. Holding the yarn and the hook is, I think, the trickiest thing to learn, and the only way to get comfortable with it and to get good at it is to just practice. And after a while, it's just easy. It's like how riding a bike was hard at first. Some people like to hold the yarn like this in their fingers and then use their index finger. I actually wrap around twice like that. The whole point of your, in our case, left hand holding the yarn, the hand that's holding the yarn, is to create tension. Because if the yarn's just loose, it's too loosey-goosey to grab onto with the hook. You want to have not super, super tight, but enough tension so that it's easy to manipulate with your right hand, okay? So you play around with that. And the thing is, these fingers down here kind of act like a little brake system, because as you go, you want to release tension, and it will just over time become second nature. You'll do it without thinking. But when you're first getting started, super awkward, okay? So here's how I like to do. I wrap toward me. I like to wrap my finger twice toward me and then kind of hold here. And then I have my hook in my right hand. There are also two styles of holding the hook. I hold my hook like this. This is called a knife hold, apparently, because it's like when you're using a knife when you're eating. And then some people hold like this, which is called a pencil style. I don't know how the hell they crochet like that, but more power to you. Guess what? There is no right or wrong way. You can crochet however the F you want to. And the only way to know what way is right for you is what feels comfortable over time. Play around with it. I have tried to learn this way because I thought it might be a little easier on my wrist. I can't do it. I don't know how people do that, but that's cool that people do it. So get your tension ready in your left hand, figure out how you want to hold this, and now we're going to start a foundation chain. Let's do it. Let's start a chain. Now, in a lot of instructions for projects, you will see that it will tell you to chain 10, chain 100, chain 20. Depending on what it is, that's how many chains you're going to have. And also, depending on how thick the yarn is and how big of a hook you're using, depends on how many chains you're gonna make. Some people learn how to crochet and they never learn how to read crochet instructions, and that's okay. You are not a bad person if you never learn how to read crochet instructions. I am still trying to figure out some of the instructions. They can be very complicated and very confusing to read at first. So don't bog yourself down with that right now. This is all you need to know to get started. All right, we're starting our chain. So we've got our left hand holding the yarn for some tension. You don't want to go super, super tight, just enough so that you have control. And then when I start, I like to hold onto the tail then. And I also keep my hand pretty close to the top of the hook. Some people hold way back here, whatever's comfortable for you. The first thing you're gonna do is what's called yarn over, which means you're just going to wrap the yarn around the hook so you're coming under the hook and toward you. That's called a yarn over. And then you're just going to pull it through that slip knot that you made, and you just made one chain. See that loop that's underneath the hook there? That's the first chain. Now let's do that again. Yarn over, pull through. You just made 2 chains. Now let's make something, we're gonna pretend that we need 10 chains, okay? So we just made 2. Now here's the thing that is one of the hardest things when you first get started is consistency in the size of your chains. So you wanna try to keep them as equal as possible. You also don't want to make them too tight, because what's gonna happen after you learn how to make a chain is you're gonna work into the chain. So if these holes here are super, super tight because you pulled them really, really tight each time, you're not going to be able to get your hook through there, because later you're going to need to stick the hook through like that, okay? So you don't want it too loose, you don't want it too tight, you want it just right, like Goldilocks. So depending on how much you pull out here or how much tension you can create here is how big the chain is going to be. So try to keep it consistent. Yarn over, pull through. Because look what happens. Look, let's say I let too much go here and then I pull through. Now look how huge that chain is compared to the first couple of chains. Now, the cool thing about crochet also is that it's really easy to fix stuff when you mess it up. Just undo what you did. It's not a big deal. Like in knitting, I think it's really hard to undo things that you did and figure out what you're supposed to do next. Crochet is a lot easier. So we've made 1, 2, 3 chains so far. Let's make another one. 4, yarn over, pull through 5, yarn over, pull through 6, and then see how I keep just grabbing this as I go? This is awkward. Don't freak out. It is awkward as hell when you start. I wanted to quit like 3 times because I was like, how do you hold all this crap? It just gets easier as you do it, just like anything. You just have to practice it, and I promise you it gets easier and easier. I know it's really awkward though. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just so you know, the yarn that's on, the loop that's on your hook, that is not a chain. That's just the working yarn that you're working with. So we have 6 so far, and I'll review how to count again. But let's do 7, yarn over, pull through 8, yarn over, pull through 9, yarn over, pull through 10. Now, let's say you had to chain 5 million chains because you're gonna make the world's largest blanket or something. I don't recommend that, but if you wanna go for that, like, go ahead. But it's really easy to lose track of how many chains you've done, especially if you have kids and 3 dogs and you're trying to watch TV and then you get hungry and you need a snack. Sometimes you need to go back and count. Here's how to count. They call this a chain, obviously, because we just chained these loops together. See how each chain looks like a little V? And also kind of has like a little bump on it. That's a chain. So you can count each V or each loop, each bump. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, under my thumb, 9, 10. And this one does, this loop on your hook, that does not count. That's just what you're working with. So the last chain is the one beneath the loop on your hook. That can be a little confusing at first. So we just made 10 chains, you guys. And that's what you need to get started in the fabulous world of crochet. My advice to you, practice this over and over until you feel comfortable holding it. Watch this. We just undid it. And we can even pull apart our slip knot. I would suggest you just start again. I hope this helped you, and I hope you're having fun. Stick with it. You can do it. I believe in you. Bye.